Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately called IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and these are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. To find all the Porch Play Chats, and there's over 180 of them, you can go to our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, follow us on Instagram, be a friend on our Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Elizabeth Marcello. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
And Susan Chlebowski. And did I say that right?
Yeah, great.
Oh, I'm so impressed with myself then. That's amazing. So these two wonderful people work for Community Connections for Children, which is an early learning resource center in central Pennsylvania. Still?
Yep.
Yes. Elizabeth is a technical assistance coach and trainer for early learning programs with experience in play work and play-based pedagogy, including outdoor learning environments and loose parts play. Formerly an occupational therapist, Susan is a Montessori-trained nature-based educator with UK Forest School training and a playwork certification who works at CCC's nature at CCC as a nature and play consultant. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about anything you want to add to what I just read for you.
Sure. So, yeah, I've been with CCC for 7 years now, and I started as what's called a quality coach. So, I was working with a caseload of providers to help meet Keystone Star standards. So, we do the quality piece, certification is kind of the health and safety piece. The whole time, though, while doing that, I was also running my own loose parts pop-up play organization where I live in central Pennsylvania and wanting to incorporate that more into my work, not really knowing how, but knowing providers really needed that. I think 2016, Susan, we met, and then just kind of kept chatting on and off from there. And then finally, I was able to bring Susan in. We can maybe talk a little bit more about that, but bring her into CCC, change my job so we could work together with providers, bringing them loose parts and play and nature and all of these wonderful things.
So I don't know if you know, Elizabeth, but I'm in Pennsylvania near Philadelphia.
Yes, that's right.
And I used to be the director of the Southeast Regional team.
Really?
That did Keystone. Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
I don't think I knew that. Or if I did, I forgot.
It's a small world. So that's amazing. That's why I was so curious about when you were talking about Pennsylvania. So that's why I wanted you to expand a little bit. So today, Susan and Elizabeth are going to talk about breaking down barriers to play and nature in traditional early childhood education settings. Because I think sometimes we struggle with, especially if we're in an urban setting, we struggle thinking, oh, we can't do that because we're in an urban setting, or, oh, we can't do that because, the nature is further away than we want to take children on a walk. And so I'm really hopeful that we can then really, truly discuss how to break down those barriers so that people can understand the importance of getting kids out, as well as the beauty of our surroundings. Look at where you are, and Pennsylvania is gorgeous. So let's talk about that. How do we do that?
Well, for us, we feel so lucky to be working together in the way we are. And it's all thanks to Elizabeth. I have to thank her for everything, because my path was very non-traditional. And I was working in what's generally called alternative early education. So Montessori, and immediately brought in nature-based learning because it was 2006 when Richard Liu's book came out. But I saw children thriving in play. And I kind of abandoned the Montessori didactic materials and realized that all the standards were being met by just letting them play outside. So I I did that for many years, and that's where I ended up meeting Elizabeth. But what I was doing doesn't typically meet the licensing and certification world.
Mhm.
And Elizabeth brought the two of us together. And now, after working in two nature preschools for almost 15 years, what we're doing together is addressing the equity piece, because those days of kids running around outside till the streetlights came on are not coming back. We
Right.
need to meet children where they are, and where children are is in early child care centers and in schools and after school programs.
Mhm.
So we work primarily with early child care centers and after school programs to have them, first of all, understand the essential nature of nature and nature play, that it's truly essential to a child's health and well-being, and also introduce them to the practices to do it safely, because a lot of people didn't receive this training in their higher
Right.
ed or early
didn't.
child preparation program.
Nope.
And so that's what we do together, is kind of meet them where they are. We don't go in and say we have a different, better way of doing things. We're
Mhm.
just trying to work with early childhood educators to help them see how they can do this no matter where they are, and give them the tools to do it, so that they're blending what they're already doing, which is great, but kind of expanding upon it by considering the ways a fully play-based curriculum inside and outside can really meet all the standards. And at the same time, when we're talking about nature play, it also feeds the educator as well.
Oh my goodness, yes. And so just looking at your beautiful background off your porch already calms me down. Mine is fake, people, just so you know. I wish I had that porch, but it calms me down. Going to the shore and hearing the waves calm me down. It's that sensory input, hearing the leaves rustle in the trees, hearing the birds chirp. All those things are so calming to humans, because we should be more exposed to nature. So, and Richard's book was an eye-opening experience for a lot of people. And so how can you help people say, okay, we know that nature is important. We know that play is how children lay the foundation for all future learning, that we don't have to do the drill and kill in preschool. We shouldn't be doing it in kindergarten or first grade either. But how can we help families recognize that what we're doing benefits their child, and that being outside is important instead of in front of the TV or on an iPad or on some game that they're playing? How can we help early childhood people communicate that information if they're thinking about changing their daily routine, or if they're thinking about adding more time for play in the daily routine? How do we do that?
Well, I will just say one thing, and then I'll let Elizabeth speak more to this. But when early child care centers embrace nature and play, and they make it a forefront of what they're doing with children, that spills over. And because the families then see, oh, these are the professionals taking care of my child. This is what they deem important. Therefore, they're more likely. And if children are spending time outside playing and enjoying the discovery and the exploration, social emotional learning, everything that's happening for them, they're more likely perhaps to take it home and ask to go outside with their parents the evenings and weekends. But that's just I think one big thing. But I'll let Elizabeth talk about some of the barriers, and then also, ways that we've tried to address them in our work.
Well, and I think what you said, Susan, is you're providing a model for the child development programs, so that parents will say they're so happy when they're here. They come home and they're all so tired because they've been playing all day. All those things are happy making for families, especially when they have to get home and start cooking dinner. And if we have older kids in school, take care of them. So yeah. So Elizabeth, what are some barriers that you've seen that you've been able to help individuals overcome?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to answer the question very similarly to Susan with you have to show them. And I think we, like you said, we model it, we go in and model it for the childcare providers and the teachers, and then they are modeling it for the parents and the families. So we had to kind of come in at different angles. We have a model of professional development where we're doing, some training and teaching, but the modeling piece is just really
Beautiful.
huge. Showing, this is how to do it, this is what it looks like. And then we show the families what it looks like through pictures and stories, documentation. One of the things that we created was we call it a learning log, and we take photos and then write basically stories. The stories are so powerful about the play that took place, and we link them with the Pennsylvania Early Learning Standards. So because families want to see that their child's learning, and of course we know they're learning through play, and we just have to show that. So that was one of the ways that we really overcame one of those barriers, which was families often want that concrete, what is my child learning piece? So we were able to provide that through photos and stories.
Well, and I think that's a beautiful strategy too, that documentation of what it is, and then letting the children do the play and then aligning it with the standards and taking photos of that play is, I always call it backward design, right? So what do we want children to know and be able to do by the end? But really the play is what they're doing. And then we're not coming up with, oh, I think they need more fine motor skills. So we're going to get out the beads and the tweezers and let them, pick up the beads. No, maybe that's something that they'll play with in the manipulative area. But it's not like we need to have the activity in mind. All we need to do is document the learning that happened during that play. And that's what's so beautiful about looking at it from that sort of backward design, not here's an activity I'm thinking, what standards align with it? No, let's don't do the activity first. Let's let them do what they're doing. So it's so much more valuable and so authentic. And what parent doesn't want to see pictures of their children, right? So happy and engaged and being free to choose and follow their own interests. So that is a fabulous strategy. What else can we do to help the early care and education professional find ways to incorporate more time for play and maybe what they're currently saying is their schedule? How do we do that?
Well, you touched on it so perfectly in a previous Porch Play chat about how we're driven by this inanimate object called the clock. And I think that's one of the biggest barriers that we encounter in working with providers, is that they are really connected to that schedule. And, sometimes they might have 20 minutes outside or a half hour. And sometimes their outdoor spaces are so undersized that they have to cycle many groups of kids. And there's many, many transitions. So they're not actually getting the benefits of a longer period of play where they really start to self-regulate. So it comes with a good bit of professional development. But when we've done the on-site loose parts pop-up play days, we bring, Elizabeth and I kind of joked that we remind ourselves of a circus. We roll in with wagons and all these loose parts. And after we leave in a few hours and it's like we were never there, but, we've had this fabulous time while we've been there. And the providers come outside with their kids and they get to see that longer play session. And then again, the learning log is connected to it. But, we often suggest that they start with maybe just one day a week where one class gets to go outside for 2 hours. So we're always talking about starting small, so that, they don't feel overwhelmed. Because if we come in and try to change too many things, obviously nobody likes that. But we try to just throw out some ideas that are kind of bite-sized pieces that they can start small.
And is there in some of these programs, is there space other than the playground where they can go out and be outside and do pop-up play outside? That's not a playground. I mean, are there woods out there? Are they mostly in the urban areas? Is there a field that they could go and grab a hold of and use? Is there a yard that at least one group could be out there at a time, and then we could do back and forth between the playground and that little patch of grass in the front yard? I'm just trying to think, is there a place other than the playground? Because I think sometimes we let the environments make us feel stuck. Well, we only have one playground and only one group can be out there at a time. And there's really no other place that's safe for us to go. Is there not really? Is there? Where else could we go? Where else could children have some nature time? And maybe it's not free play, but maybe it at least is a walk or, an exploration into some other place, even if it's a sidewalk after a rainstorm with all the worms that come out. I mean, so is that a strategy that we could use to kind of get them out of their box thinking? I don't know. In your
Yeah.
experience, is that something that would work?
Yeah, we use a lot of Rachel Laramore's Preschool Beyond Walls. She's wonderful, and she talks about the inside, the outside, and the beyond. And so we always talk with sites about, do you use the beyond even if you don't have beautiful woods? We were fortunate enough to work with one facility that did, and we went into the woods and did forest days with them, and
Oh,
Susan brought all of her forest training knowledge. It was wonderful. We got to work hands-on with all the teachers, but not everyone has that. So we do talk about walks, and even if all you have is a parking lot, what nature is there? So we definitely address that as part of our training and ask, where else can you go that maybe you didn't previously think of? And not everyone, again, has that place where we could set up loose parts. So we do use, play spaces or outdoor learning environments as much as we need to. But certainly that's a strategy to help them kind of look beyond the barriers and try to, think about space, materials, all of that.
And those four walls that they feel that sometimes I even think teachers are feel trapped in. Oh, we can't go outside. Oh, we can't do this because it's raining. Oh, we can't, take all the Lego buckets in the building and put them in one room, and all the Lincoln logs in a building and put them in another room, right? That, oh no, we have to have all this stuff in our room, even though it's the exact same cookie cutter as in every other room. And so, sometimes I think those barriers are there because that's what they've always done. I remember when I was a director on Friday afternoons, when I was a teacher first, and then I did it as a director on Friday afternoons, because we didn't have 10 manipulatives in every room, but we had 200 of each of 4 manipulatives in every room, so that children had lots of time and lots of stuff to work with, right? And on Friday afternoons, as a teacher, I would say, okay, I haven't watched anybody play with this manipulative all week, so I'm going to put it outside my door on Friday afternoon and see if another class wants it. And then I'm going to see what they're getting rid of. And then I'm going to bring it into mine, so we have another new big set of something for next week. And that worked really, really well, so that we were able to rotate materials where children had enough materials to play with, instead of just 10 of a few materials each. So that worked really well, and really brought some inspiration back into the classroom. But the other thing I'm curious about, Elizabeth, especially with your play worker training, are we doing anything with coaching them on what play work is and how it's different than facilitating? Because I think that is a big, I mean, when I was at Cameron School in Fort Williams, I was talking too much, and I'm saying, oh my God, I'm talking too much. And it was hard to just observe and be present without describing and adding to and, blah, 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 right? Oh, it was so hard for me.
It is.
And
Yeah.
so do we use any of that, the play worker approaches to sort of help them see play differently?
Yeah, since Susan also has her playwork certification, each of us through a different organization. So, yeah, I don't know, Susan, if you want to talk about this, but we certainly touch on language, and the role of the adult is such a big piece of what we talk about, which is, Reggio inspired kind of pedagogy. And a lot of teachers don't know. I didn't know when I was the teacher. I was always in there, solving problems for them and talking way too much. And so it's not something that's taught, like we said earlier. So we definitely address that as kind of the piece that holds it all together. We as the adults we allow space and time and materials, or we don't. We're the permission givers, or we're not. And so the role of the adult is kind of the foundation. It ties it all together.
Oh, and I think what you just said, just those two phrases, are you going to facilitate or are you going to direct, right? And what's the role of the adult and how do you have to shift that perspective if you want children to have more play? Because I really think sometimes we're just so controlling because we feel like we have to be considered a professional. So
Yeah.
how can we help them more with that, Susan?
Well, when I was running my nature preschool, I had university students come and do observations, and sometimes they were only there for 1 hour a week. And one of them walked away and went back to her professor and called it Crazy Town.
Oh.
Because I think she had never witnessed a place where children had so much autonomy.
Mhm.
And I think they started to look at me as possibly negligent because I wasn't just in there all the time, kind of directing and controlling things that were happening. So I came up with a little acronym to help them understand when I'm intervening and when I'm not. And my little acronym it's very silly. It's DUD, D-U-D. And so I just had so little time with them. I wanted them to kind of grasp this concept. So the first D is dangerous, that unless it's dangerous, I'm going to stand back. I want them to develop focus and concentration and solve their own problems and really get into a deep play, a creative process, social emotional learning. So I am not going to mess with that unless it's dangerous. The U is for unkind. And then I would go in, but I would come in a gentle way and use any unkindness as just an opportunity to model communication, conflict resolution, and social and emotional skills. So even an unkind situation ends up being part of the curriculum because you're navigating social emotional learning and communication. And then the third D is destructive, which used to be a capital D, but I've modified it to be a small d because children need to destruct. I believe it's a play schema. And we see them dump and destruct and break things all the time. It's part of an innate process in children to understand their world. So unless the destruction is really damaging something that, they're hitting a building or, like chipping the play set or something, or it's something's flying and it's going to hurt another child. We even let a little bit of destruction go, and things like I've seen children take heavy sticks and kind of break apart a decomposing log. That's destructive, but they're also learning about decomposition and they're following their interest and their curiosity. So we know that then they're having really meaningful learning through their play. So I'm not going to jump in on that one either. So that's a little thing that we've done to try to, instill that idea of what a play worker's role is, which is basically an unlearning of what we think we should be doing.
What the role is, right? Yeah, and I think that's like 7 Porch Play Chats in a row. To unlearn what you've always done it's challenging and it takes practice and you're going to make mistakes, right? when we're talking about cultural diversity and equity versus equality, I'm always telling them, I've been doing this work for 45 years, and I have thoughts that fly through my consciousness that are horrific, embarrassing. And I go, oh my God, I can't believe that thought just went through my head. It's certainly not an appropriate comment if we're wanting to be culturally sensitive and appropriate. And then I have to reflect on that and say, okay, you've been fighting this stuff for 45 years, because even though I was raised in the most loving, nurturing, wonderful environment, my family was racist and discriminatory. I mean, big time. And so I have had to, that was my early experiences, right? Over and over and over again, because we lived in South Texas, right on the Mexican border. And so it was horribly racist and horribly discriminatory. And the things that would come out of my wonderful and fabulous dad and mom and my brothers and sisters, who were much older than I was, were to me, I would go, but my friends are, I have friends who are from Mexico. My best friend is Mexican. And 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 I like her a lot, right? And so I had this like discontinuity between what I was hearing at home and what my experience was. And so even to this day, occasionally, not as much as it used to, I have this horrible thought that flies through my head, and I have to just take a minute and go, whoa, you've been doing this work for 45 years and it's still there. So please, and you have to forgive yourself and recognize, where it came from. But when you're trying to change something that you've been doing for decades or for years, or that you experienced for years, wow, it takes a while to work through that. You need to forgive yourself and give yourself some space, right? Some just recognizing that this is hard work and change is hard. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's crazy. So if there are like three things that you want to talk about before, as we close up, are there three big points that you want to share? Or is there something you want to make sure that our listeners hear in the last couple of minutes?
Elizabeth, I'll let you take that one.
Okay. Well, we may have already said it, but starting small, I think, is a really big one for either people who want to do the work that Susan and I are doing, or for teachers who want to make changes. It can be really overwhelming, all of the topics out there. Like you said, changing yourself and how you see things is huge in itself. And then changing your teaching practices. So taking small steps, thinking about, what do you enjoy? What brings you joy in the classroom? What's something that, you love to do in the classroom that you can bring in with the children and do. And more than likely, they will find it joyful as well, as long as it's, open-ended, child-led as much as possible. So that's a big one that we always talk about, is starting small. The early learning world right now is kind of in crisis mode, and it's another barrier that we run into. There's no time, not a lot of energy to do anything above and beyond. And we want people to know that these approaches that we're trying to implement will actually make life so much easier and more joyful, a more peaceful environment for them and for the children. But, one thing at a time. So
one thing at a time, baby step your way through.
yeah,
Just try one thing, right? That Boz always said, start in the corner.
Yeah.
give it time,
Yes, time, absolutely.
and and forgive yourself
Hmm.
when you make mistakes. I think those, because the work is so hard,
Hmm.
and the times that we're living in currently are really hard. And so, I had a student who was doing a curriculum unit, and we always have them do a long-term project, right? Like Reggio Emilia. They have to listen to children's conversations, come up with something that they hear children are interested in, and then develop provocations for that are related to whatever children are interested in learning more about. And she said, I'm going to do mud because my kids love to play in mud. And I said, awesome. And she did an entire 3-week unit on mud. And she said, I have always been a controlling teacher. I've always said, here's what we're going to do today. Here's how it's going to go. Here's how long it's going to be. Here's what, and we're all going to do it together, right? As a large group. And so she said, I knew that wouldn't work with mud. And I've had you before, and you said that doesn't work well. And so I totally changed everything. And can I tell you, my job is so much easier? I I am I am amazed at how not trying to control every minute of the day has reduced the level of stress in my classroom. And so I want you guys to try not to control every little minute of the day. Start baby steps and keep broadening the time where children have freedom. All right, don't go anywhere while I close this out. To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.